You take your vitamins every morning. You line them up on the counter. You swallow them with your breakfast or your coffee. You've been doing it faithfully, sometimes for years, and you've assumed that more is better, that all of those capsules are working together, building on each other, compounding their benefits inside your body. Here is what the supplement industry almost never tells you. Several of the most commonly taken vitamins and minerals, the ones in virtually every senior supplement lineup, actively compete with each other for absorption. They use the same intestinal transporters. They block each other's uptake. They interfere with each other's metabolism. And when taken together at the same time, they produce a fraction of the benefit of either one taken correctly. You are not getting what you paid for. Not because the vitamins are fake, because the timing and the combination are wrong. And after 60, when nutrient absorption is already less efficient and the consequences of deficiency are more serious, getting this right is not a minor detail. It is the difference between supplementation that actually changes your health outcomes and supplementation that produces expensive urine. Today I am going to show you exactly which combinations to separate and how to restructure your supplement routine so that every capsule you take actually works. Here are the 4 problematic combinations. Combination number 1, the iron-calcium conflict, why your bone supplement is blocking your blood builder. This is the most common problematic pairing in senior supplement regimens, and it produces 2 deficiencies simultaneously in people who believe they are addressing both. Iron and calcium share the same primary intestinal transporter, the divalent metal transporter 1, DMT1. When both are present in the gut at the same time, in the concentrated doses typical of supplements, they compete directly for transport access. Calcium, typically taken at doses of 500 to 1,000 milligrams, far exceeding any natural food source, overwhelms the transporter and significantly reduces iron uptake. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that calcium supplementation taken simultaneously with iron reduced iron absorption by up to 49%, nearly half, compared to iron taken without calcium. This effect was consistent across multiple forms of iron supplement and multiple forms of calcium supplement. The competition is at the transporter level and is not formulation specific. For older adults, particularly postmenopausal women who are taking calcium for bone health and iron for anemia or anemia prevention, this combination, taken together daily, can produce or sustain iron deficiency while simultaneously failing to adequately address bone calcium status, because both nutrients are competing for inadequate absorption capacity. The solution is simple in principle. Separate iron and calcium supplementation by at least 2 hours, ideally taking them at completely different meals. Iron is best absorbed on an empty stomach or with vitamin C. Ascorbic acid dramatically increases non-heme iron absorption by reducing ferric iron to the more absorbable ferrous form. Calcium is best absorbed with a meal that contains some fat. Fat-soluble cofactors improve calcium utilization, and split into 2 smaller doses of 500 milligrams rather than 1 large dose, since the intestinal transporter capacity for calcium is dose-limited. Practical restructuring. Take iron with breakfast, alongside a glass of orange juice or a kiwi fruit for vitamin C synergy. Take your first calcium dose at lunch and your second at dinner. This simple time separation eliminates the competitive inhibition entirely and allows both nutrients to be absorbed at their individual maximum efficiency. And one specific food interaction to know: coffee and tea, both commonly consumed at breakfast, contain polyphenols and tannins that further reduce iron absorption by up to 60% when consumed within an hour of an iron supplement. If you drink coffee at breakfast, take your iron mid-morning instead. Combination number 2, the calcium-magnesium competition, when your heart mineral blocks your muscle mineral. This combination appears in virtually every senior-targeted bone health or complete mineral supplement on the market. Calcium and magnesium combined in a single capsule, often marketed as synergistic, actually competing. Calcium and magnesium share absorption pathways in the small intestine, competing for the same transport mechanisms and for the same intracellular signaling systems in the enterocyte, the intestinal absorptive cell. When taken simultaneously at supplemental doses, high calcium intake suppresses magnesium absorption. And given that calcium supplements are typically dosed at 500 to 1,000 milligrams, while magnesium supplements are typically 200 to 400 milligrams, the calcium numerically dominates and significantly reduces magnesium uptake. This matters enormously after 60, because magnesium deficiency is already prevalent in approximately 45% of older adults, due to dietary inadequacy, reduced intestinal absorption, increased urinary loss from diuretics, and the age-related reduction in gut transporter efficiency I described earlier. When the calcium supplement further reduces magnesium absorption, the deficiency deepens, and magnesium deficiency produces consequences that are easy to attribute to aging: muscle cramping, poor sleep quality, fatigue, constipation, elevated blood pressure, and cardiac arrhythmias. The very conditions that the calcium supplement was perhaps taken alongside other medications to address, being worsened by the timing of that calcium itself. A study from the Journal of the American College of Nutrition found that high calcium intake significantly reduced magnesium retention in older adults, with the effect most pronounced when calcium was taken as a supplement rather than from food sources, where natural food matrix effects modulate the competition. The optimization. Never take calcium and magnesium simultaneously. Take calcium with your midday or evening meal. Take magnesium as a separate supplement in the evening, ideally as magnesium glycinate or magnesium malate, forms with higher bioavailability and lower gastrointestinal side effects than the commonly used magnesium oxide. Magnesium taken in the evening additionally supports the deep sleep stages that older adults most benefit from, making the timing therapeutic rather than arbitrary. The calcium-magnesium combination capsule was always a compromise of convenience over biochemistry. Separating them costs nothing and significantly improves the absorption of both. Combination number 3. The vitamin D, vitamin K2, timing problem. The bone and heart team that works better apart. This pairing is less competitive in the absorption sense and more about sequential metabolic function, but the consequence of getting it wrong is significant enough to warrant the same attention. Vitamin D and vitamin K2 are both fat-soluble vitamins that are genuinely synergistic in their biological functions. Vitamin D promotes calcium absorption from the gut and raises blood calcium levels. Vitamin K2 activates the proteins, specifically osteocalcin and matrix GLA protein, that direct that calcium into bone and teeth where it belongs and prevent it from depositing in arterial walls and soft tissues where it causes harm. This synergy is real and important. In populations with adequate vitamin D but inadequate K2, the calcium that vitamin D absorbs from the gut may be deposited in arterial walls rather than bone, contributing to the arterial calcification that stiffens vessels and elevates cardiovascular risk. K2 is the traffic director that tells calcium where to go. The issue is not taking them together. In fact, taking them together with a fat-containing meal is appropriate for both, as both require dietary fat for optimal absorption. The issue is that the supplement industry frequently sells vitamin D without K2 at all, in doses, often 5,000 IU or higher, that are not individually calibrated to blood levels, and without the medical monitoring that high-dose vitamin D supplementation requires. Vitamin D toxicity, hypervitaminosis D, is a real and documented consequence of unsupervised high-dose supplementation. It causes hypercalcemia, elevated blood calcium, which produces kidney stones, calcification of soft tissues, cardiac arrhythmias, and in severe cases, irreversible kidney damage. A study published in JAMA found that routine vitamin D supplementation at doses above the recommended upper limit without blood level monitoring was associated with elevated rates of vitamin D toxicity in older adults, particularly those simultaneously consuming calcium supplements that further elevated blood calcium levels. The correct approach: never take high-dose vitamin D supplements, anything above 2,000 IU daily, without first having your serum 25-hydroxy vitamin D level measured. This is a standard blood test. Dose supplementation to correct a documented deficiency, not to an arbitrary more is better target. If taking vitamin D, take it with your fattiest meal of the day, lunch or dinner, for optimal absorption, alongside vitamin K2 at 90 to 200 micrograms of MK7 form. And have your vitamin D level rechecked after 3 months of supplementation to confirm you have reached adequacy without excess. Vitamin D without K2 is the most common and most commercially prevalent version of this story. Vitamin D without blood level monitoring is the most dangerous version. Both are correctable with one conversation with your physician. Combination number 4, the B12 folic acid masking problem, when one B vitamin hides another's deficiency. This final combination is the most subtle, and for older adults, potentially the most serious. Because the interaction here is not primarily about absorption competition, it is about diagnostic masking. Vitamin B12 and folic acid, vitamin B9, are both B vitamins essential for DNA synthesis, red blood cell formation, and neurological function. They work in closely related biochemical pathways, the methylation cycle, and deficiency in either produces similar blood changes. Here is the critical clinical interaction. When folic acid is supplemented in high doses, which is common in many multivitamins and B-complex supplements, it can correct the megaloblastic anemia that B12 deficiency produces. The blood picture normalizes. The red blood cells return to normal size. The anemia disappears from the blood count, but the neurological damage from B12 deficiency, the subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord, the peripheral neuropathy, the cognitive decline, continues and progresses. Because folic acid corrects the blood manifestation of B12 deficiency without touching the neurological one. The result? A patient whose blood work looks normal, whose anemia is resolved by folic acid, but whose nervous system is sustaining the silent, progressive damage of uncorrected B12 deficiency. For months or years, before the neurological consequences become clinical. This interaction was documented clinically long before modern supplementation became common, and it remains one of the primary reasons that B12 deficiency must be confirmed through serum B12 testing, not inferred from blood count normality alone. A study from Tufts University found that high folic acid intake was significantly associated with lower serum B12 levels and masked B12 deficiency in older adults, with the masking effect most pronounced in adults over 65, whose B12 absorption was already reduced by declining gastric acid and intrinsic factor production. B12 deficiency is extraordinarily common after 60, affecting an estimated 15 to 20% of older adults. Due to the gastric acid reduction that is necessary for liberating B12 from food protein, the declining intrinsic factor production required for B12 absorption, and the widespread use of proton pump inhibitors that further suppress gastric acid. The crystalline B12 in supplements, unlike the protein-bound B12 in food, does not require gastric acid for absorption. This is one case where the supplement form is genuinely superior to the food form for correction of deficiency. The optimization. Have your serum B12 level checked at your next annual physical. If it is below 400 picomoles per liter, the threshold increasingly recognized as optimal rather than merely normal, discuss B12 supplementation with your physician in the form of methylcobalamin or hydroxycobalamin, the forms with best neurological bioavailability. Take your B12 supplement separately from your folic acid at a different time of day, and ensure your B12 status is confirmed corrected before assuming the folic acid in your multivitamin is providing complete B vitamin coverage. The B12 blood test is the most important single action most older adults who haven't had one recently could take for their neurological health. Ask for it by name. Here is the complete restructured supplement timing framework based on the interactions described. Morning with breakfast, fat-containing meal. Vitamin D3 with K2M, K7. These are fat-soluble and require dietary fat for absorption. Together, not separate. With eggs, avocado, yogurt, or anything containing natural fat. Mid-morning on an empty stomach. Iron supplement if prescribed or indicated. With a vitamin C source, orange juice, kiwi, or a vitamin C supplement taken simultaneously. No coffee or tea within an hour on either side. Lunchtime with a fat-containing meal. First calcium dose, 500 milligrams maximum. Calcium is dose-limited in absorption. 2 smaller doses absorb more efficiently than 1 large dose. Afternoon. At least 2 hours after iron. Zinc supplement if taken. Zinc also uses DMT1 and should be separated from iron, calcium, and copper to avoid competitive inhibition. Evening with dinner. Second calcium dose, 500 milligrams. Separate from magnesium by at least 2 hours. Before bed, magnesium glycinate, 200 to 400 milligrams depending on physician guidance. Separate from calcium. Supports deep sleep as a secondary benefit. B12, methylcobalamin or hydroxycobalamin. Separate from folic acid by taking it in the morning and folic acid in the evening, or taking it on alternate days if your physician agrees. Confirm blood levels before and after starting supplementation. And the overarching principle across all of these. Every supplement you take should be guided by a measured deficiency or a specific clinical indication, not by a general assumption that more nutrition is always better. Ask your physician to check the blood levels that correspond to the supplements you're taking. The results often reveal that some supplements are unnecessary and others are more urgently needed than you realized. I want to close with something I genuinely believe. The intention behind supplement taking after 60 is almost always right. The desire to protect your health, to correct what time and diet may have depleted, to be proactive rather than passive, these instincts are sound. The supplementation conversation in modern medicine deserves to be taken seriously rather than dismissed. But intention without information produces an expensive inefficiency at best and a genuine health risk at worst. The interactions in this video are not theoretical. They are documented in clinical biochemistry. They are affecting the health outcomes of adults who are doing their very best with incomplete information. You now have more complete information. The timing adjustments I've described today require no new purchases, no new products, just a rearrangement of what you already have on that counter, guided by the biochemistry of how your aging gut actually absorbs what you give it. If this video gave you something useful, a combination to separate, a blood test to request, a supplement routine to restructure, please consider subscribing. Every week I bring you this same quality of honest, clinically grounded, evidence-based information with nothing to sell. Next week I am going to cover the 5 most important blood tests every adult over 60 should request annually. Tests that predict the highest risk conditions before they become emergencies, and that most general practitioners don't routinely order unless you specifically ask. Including the one test that identifies cardiovascular risk with greater accuracy than standard cholesterol testing alone. That video could genuinely change the information available to you at your next appointment. Until then, separate your iron from your calcium, take your magnesium in the evening, get your B12 level checked, and give every supplement you take the absorption conditions it actually needs to work. Your health investment deserves a return. Make sure the biochemistry allows it.